everyone feel about paper straws?
We generally go to the investors to look for the funds. But if I'll say personally that I don't want to go for a fund, I just need their network or their mentoring. So I'll say that we don't invest into our company. So how can we just approach them to get their network open up for us?
And we give each other a lot of money.
Exactly.
Welcome to another edition of Startup Table with AJ. AJ being me, Archana Jahagirdar. And I'm the founder of Rukam Capital, and we are in the Rukam Capital office. You know, in the last few editions, I think we went to different parts of India, but we are now back to home base, to the Rukam Capital office. And I have with me another very interesting cohort of founders, where we're going to try and unpack what it takes to be a founder and what are the motivations. And of course, there's always going to be that segment where the founders ask me questions about how they think or what are the questions that are top of their mind. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me at this table. So I'd request each one of you to do a quick introduction and then we can get right into the conversation. So please start.
Sure, Archana. I'm Priyansh Mohan. I'm the co-founder of Mine Electric. And at Mine, we are trying to build a solution for limitless energy with metal air fuel cells. We essentially take a metal, we take water and we take oxygen, put them together, produce electricity, and we are on our cusp of commercialization, trying to replace diesel gensets across the world, a $100 billion market opportunity in itself.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Surbhi Bafna Gupta. I'm the co-founder at Alter. We do sustainable and organic baby care that performs, and we've been in the business for 5 years now. And our mission is to give modern parents an option that is both convenient and is made with safe ingredients.
Hi, my name is Aishwarya and I'm the founder of Organic Earth Company. We are creating modern farming solutions in hydroponics which are sustainable in India. So our idea is basically to help our growers to decide what to grow, how to market it, and making hydroponics sustainable as a business for future.
Hi, myself Sanjay Garg. And we are the manufacturer for the atmospheric water generator. So this is one of the most sustainable way to generate drinking water without touching any kind of a groundwater, or any plumbing is not required, and zero water wastage. And in our team, recently there is an addition of Mr. Vivek Oberoi. So he is again joined us as a co-founder with us.
Hi, my name is Mayank. I am founder of 2Use. We are an app that allows people to declutter, recycle and donate their old clothes directly from their doorstep conveniently. And then when we take those clothes, we upcycle them into sustainable clothing and sustainable packaging, which again is being consumed by companies and brands to sustainably help the environment.
Hi, I'm Rachna. I launched a sustainable fashion brand in 2022. Wanting to create awareness and create that massive change in the fashion industry, because that's the second largest pollutant in the world. So we are making conscious efforts to make sure that the dyeing, the printing, and the base fabrics are always environment friendly. The big change that hasn't taken place, which should have taken place, is because the clothing that being sold in the name of eco-friendly and planet is actually not comfortable and attractive. We are trying to bring fashion to sustainability. I'm the only one working with grass fabric. We are the ones who have pioneered in launching it in India and the globe.
Hi, my name is Mayur. I'm the co-founder of a company called CarboCap. We are actually creating a data-driven marketplace for voluntary carbon markets. And we work with project developers. We record their project activity data from the first day itself, and we ensure that we store that data on a secured blockchain. And then companies, third parties and auditors can use it for either for purchasing it or either for rating the projects itself. So we are bringing transparency and standardization in the high quality of carbon offsets.
It's really interesting, and before I'm going to really start with the question that I wanted to ask all of you is that we have so many women at the table. So I think sustainability attracts women founders, and that's a net good, I think, already. So my question to all of you is that the Gen Z sort of audience is the one that talks the most about sustainability, but their habits are not necessary, or their consumer behavior doesn't match what they say, right? Fast fashion, so you're talking about, conscious fashion, but, the guys who are winning are the fast fashion guys, and so on and so forth, for all the products or all the sort of ideas that are at this table. So my question therefore is, how hard or easy is it when you're trying to sell to the consumer? Does the consumer say all the right things, but when it comes to, let's say, paying extra for sustainability or for being environmentally conscious, does the consumer step back?
It depends really on which market you are in. If you are in the B2C market, then obviously catering to the Gen Z audience makes sense. Maybe they'll pay the premium if you have the better branding, but if you're in the B2B market, which we are in, it's really about the decarbonization push that has been happening for the last 20 years. And really in the last 5 years has it actually started growing. For example, carbon credits have come up as one of the best ways to decarbonize the market. And then it's also
But carbon credits have been around for a long time. It's not a new thing.
But it has grown.
No, so that's my question. So it takes a while for adoption to happen, right? Whether it's B2B or B2C. So the question therefore is that as a founder in the startup ecosystem, in the sustainability space, is the journey a little too long therefore?
Maybe I'm the best to answer since you mentioned fashion over there. You're absolutely bang on. It starts with creating awareness, which is there, but what we need to as founders do is reach out to them with an alternative. You see, when you are giving a decision to a youngster or whoever in the market with Gyan like it is, you have to make it approachable. And that's where we have focused on, with the kind of lifestyles we are living, the way we are focused on, whether it's social media, whatever it is, suddenly we can't start wearing langochas and go back to the old days. So we incorporated fashion as a keyword to sustainability. Now, when you do that, then it becomes easier to do the conversion and to make the change in your wardrobe and your lifestyle. I think that's a very important thing where we are standing, that you have to make the change, but keeping in mind the consumer as your center point, and then address it.
Drawing from what Rachna said, alternative is key, and I think that's where also our brand name stemmed from. Alter came from alternative. And very early on we realized, and there's numbers to back this up, the percentage of people who talk sustainability vis-a-vis the percentage of people who are actually putting their money where their mouth is, there's a drastic difference. Also, especially in consumer products, people tend to place sustainability as a second or a third parameter over performance or quality. And as a brand, and price as well, price in our category, in baby category, tends to not matter so much because there's that overarching factor कि बच्चे के लिए तो हम कुछ भी कर देंगे, which supersedes everything else. But then for that, you really need to convince the parent. They tend to focus more on what they're going to derive from the product, and then sustainability can be sort of a secondary layer to it. And that's what we've understood as, it works in the communications angle.
So for the consumer, it's majorly value-based pricing. For a big conglomerate, it's usually just on price. Are you going to be able to give them a decarbonized solution?
So it's still price, right? I mean, a big conglomerate doesn't like to spend money. They may have money, but they don't spend money.
Exactly.
I think it's a bit of a change which is happening, and it's a very, very big change.
No, but to go back to where he started from, see, carbon credits have been around since, ever. But adoption of that regime and adoption of it as a, mandatory or primary practice is still not the case.
I think that we, considering our product range and all those things, since we are using plastic bottles to have a water with us, and we all know now the awareness has already been started, and people started knowing that with the plastics is not good for us, and particularly the water inside the plastic is probably a big cause to our health issues and all those things. And again, the awareness which has been already been spread by the government and NGT is also particularly regarding the RO plants and particularly the TDS and all those things. So, so awareness is certainly the one aspect, considering the sustainability aspect to the consumers. But on the other side, I believe that how many options do you have, and how economically these options, because people, so people will start comparing it that what is the available option and why should I go with this one. So if it's a combination of both the things, awareness is the one, the price factor is the another one, and third is that
I think functionality of the product also really matters.
I think
I will
It
not
matters,
buy a
yeah.
subpar product because it's supposedly more
Absolutely.
sustainable.
So, well, like in my industry, when I started with hydroponics, you must have seen back before just COVID started, there were many companies, many farms that had started around NCR. They were growing green vegetables, they were growing lettuce, they were growing herbs, other kinds of different herbs. So, well, just within 6-7 months, they all shut down because they were just not making enough money. I mean, traditional farming in our country is so good that people are just not willing to pay extra money in the name of organic. Like they will, even if you grow, I mean, I was growing hydroponic lettuce, but they can easily get lettuce from a,
A regular
roadside
farm.
vendor. So they are just not willing to pay that extra price there. So this was a big problem with me, that consumer is still, they want organic, but they're just not ready to pay the price for that.
Yeah.
But again, in today's market, apart from earlier, the concept was okay, we are selling the product to the consumer. It's a capex market. So now considering into the opex market, and as rightly said, there is a certain other ways to get the monetization of your product. It can be in the form of a carbon credits or EPR and all those kind of things. So we can
No, but
make our product
those are secondary sources of.
Yeah,
see,
it
any
is, it
business
is.
has to have a primary source of revenue.
Carbon credits is usually an additional revenue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can't be the way to build any business.
So when we see at awareness, we talk about economics of it, we talk about the functionality of it, but one thing that we majorly miss out is the impact that you're creating by consuming that particular product, because the company is talking about the impact that they're creating by manufacturing it, but it's not completely transparent. So it's the consumer's responsibility to either understand what kind of impact that you are generating by consuming. So I see you working on recycling the clothes, right? So that is a consumer who understands the impact of the clothing that they are disposing, right? So either they're choosing somewhere.
But again, I'm not sure whether the responsibility lies only with the consumer. Because
Not
again,
only with
that's
the consumer.
yeah. Because see, recycling. If I have an option as a consumer,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I mean, and there's no friction. That's consumer behavior for everything, right? Yeah. There has to be no friction, and there has to be enough options, and it should be it should look like a good equation for me. Right? I mean, human beings work out of self-interest before they work out of anything else. I mean, much as we would all want to be saints and monks, we are not. The bulk of us are normal people, and our behavior will be driven by self-interest. So in that, I think if there's a good option. So, like I met, these pre-loved sort of product platforms, right? Now, all of us have lots of bags, shoes. But the thing was, the way that startup was trying to do the trade, it was against my interest of somebody who was going to place my product, my pre-existing sort of a bag or whatever. I'll never go for it. I mean, my cupboards may be bursting at seams, but I find it unfair because they wanted to keep it for 6 months without paying me anything. Now, 6 months later, I get it back damaged. What can I do about it, right?
Exactly. So keeping all this feedback in mind, when we launched 2Use almost like a year ago, so we did a kind of a market research to see what exactly is happening currently in India in regards to, let's say, pre-loved clothes, old clothes or unused clothes that are lying there in our wardrobe or bed bunks. And we figured out that, okay, people, there's certain population that is interested to, who has like 1, 2 or 3 or 4 apparels only, that they feel like, okay, let me get it listed there and wait for the buyers to come. And then, but for that, for such kind of business to sustain, you kind of in marketing in 2 ways. First, you have to bring those people who want to, declutter, and then those people who want to kind of purchase that.
But when you declutter, sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but I'll allow you to complete your point as well. Is that I should not feel I'm getting cheated on it.
Exactly.
So please complete.
Right. So, to keep this thing in mind, what we did was, when I was starting this up very like almost like in 1.5 years back, I reached out to my neighbors. Your neighbors are the best customers you can ever have. And I simply rang them and said, why don't you give me your old clothes and we'll recycle them and upcycle them into something. The first question that all my neighbors said, what will I get in return?
Yes.
And then we, try to see, chalo, let's see how that particular organization is doing. And if we can tell them, okay, when we can, once we'll have your clothes, we recycle them, then we monetize you. two neighbors backed out. They're like, no, I need an immediate reward. And that's how we build the entire reward mechanism, so that, the moment you place an order, the moment your clothes picked up, boom, you have credits in your wallet, you can consume it as required, and you enjoy your part of it. We take care of the rest, and then that's how, entire process goes. So immediate rewarding is something that we incorporated to ensure that households or everyone is kind of encouraged or incentivized to take that action, and eventually that is what helping us build the entire momentum in the
Actually,
segment.
I'll go back to your point. Very well said and beautifully put, because people are not going to change because you're giving them moral gyan. So we need to realize.
And we give each other a lot of moral gyan, right? In India, there's no shortage of it.
Absolutely. And so that's where, for me, I've, researched, understood. Fine, we all know that the earth's in crisis, but we can't take that sole responsibility. But we will make that change if we're doing it and enjoying the process. So I completely endorse what you said, that we need to do it, we should do it, but we need to reach out to the consumer without giving them gyan and preaching them and doing it. And very well said. People want rewards and returns, and that's how we are, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Gratification is what makes the world go around.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we said, manifest, that's what it is, so why not? And that's exactly what I'm trying to do, create a cycle within my own apparels as well, that you buy for us, we take it back from you. There are multiple ways of providing circularity. Pre-love is not the only way to do it. Thrifting is not the only way to do it.
And my point is, even if that was to be an option,
Yeah.
it cannot be a trade that's unfair to me, the person who's placing that product in that sense, right? It has to be again, like I say this a lot, whether it's taxes or it's a product, consumer product, you have to feel a sense of fairness. You cannot feel as if somebody is taking advantage of you. The minute that happens in the equation, that's it, you've lost the person,
I mean, one of the core learnings that we have had in the sustainability market has been, if you truly want to go sustainable, there are only two ways to do it. First is either you wait out for the market to grow. That is what has happened with carbon credits. Other is you come up with the huge technological breakthrough. For example, I'm just assuming that the reward system might be working through UPI. Right?
There are multiple. So we have almost like 200, 300 plus brands available. Yeah. So either you can convert your credits into brand vouchers, or you can cash it out via UPI.
10 years ago,
it was not
possible.
Yeah.
So technology is at the forefront of making a sustainable tomorrow possible, is what we have seen.
Yeah, but even then, for the consumer to view it that way, like I said, see, again, I mean, I wrote this piece, the reason fast food works and health food doesn't is fast food takes away all friction. So when you walk into a QSR, a fast food QSR, they make ordering very easy. So there are just very few choices. And they've thought it through that, okay, if you're eating something salty, you want a fizzy drink with it and maybe a sweet with it. And they've packaged it neatly. They know how to give it to you very quickly so you don't change your mind, right? So the whole part of the QSR business is that from order to you getting the order, from you ordering to getting the orders, I think 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. So they've optimized everything around just that, right? Then the location of the QSRs are in all the attractive high footfall areas. You tell me what health food does. They preach to you that, oh, you got bad habits. What does the entire fitness industry do? They preach to you and say, oh, you're such a bad person because you ate a samosa and a pizza. You don't want to be guilted into. You can't guilt people into long-term behavior
They push you a lot towards choosing what you want to choose. Like it's a pull principle that you want to understand what your marketing and branding should be, pulling towards. They're pulling the consumer
so attractive.
Towards.
It's so attractive that they come to you rather than the other way around.
So I think exactly that's the point, that this whole thing about making people make this change just because we believe this is the future is not true. It's like just because millets is the year of millets, you don't suddenly start eating only millets. You need to make this transition by making it available, accessible, approachable, and it happens naturally. I mean, like, for example, what's our aim in life? We want to look good. We want to have clothes which fit us well. Certainly, we don't want to wear something today and dump it tomorrow, right? We don't want. So that durability is sustainability. Why are we forgetting that? The other very important thing I think people have forgotten when they talk of, I think sustainability, sometimes an over-abused word, is employment. Employment is a very critical part of the world. How can we forget, and why should we say forget commercialization? Why should we say
So that's actually, I mean, that's a point I would want everybody to talk about, because, you know, when this, that these seasons in fashion specifically, or in any industry, everything is now seasonal, right? Which makes you buy more things. The question is, the bigger these companies get, they do add jobs. Yes. And that's very critical again, because as the overall population, you know, at a global scale increases, of course, different countries have different challenges with population growth. How do you feed all these mouths? You need to create employment. So how does employment happen? So is it also responsibility of businesses that are pushing sustainability? You wanted to come in.
I'll say that yes, one thing is for sure, but on the other contrary, I'll say, how about the health issues? If we'll make aware in terms of, there is a certain areas in this country itself where there is an arsenic in the ground itself, and people are actually drinking that particular water and maybe just getting some kind of health issues are there. So awareness is the one. Employment is definitely that way is the aspect.
I'm going to again, you know, force you to think a little bit. See, we all know there's arsenic. Like, I live in a fairly upscale colony in Delhi, and we get hard water. But the thing is that we all know, I mean, hard water has many problems, right? Hair fall, your skin becomes blotchy. Of course, you'll have gut issues. But what happens is we are able to convince ourselves that maybe I ate something there because of which I've got issues. I'll never do that causation and you know, correlation to arsenic, because we can't see it. Unfortunately, again, the human mind believes what you can see, and where there's a direct correlation, which is why a lot of us will believe in food poisoning. Ki aaj maine kuch khaya, I've had a issue.
Usually the water.
Huh?
It's usually the water.
Exactly, exactly. But very rarely do we make that kind of, you know, especially if you're in a small town, you're used to drinking a certain quality of water, right? So when we go into small towns, we'll buy a bottle of Bisleri or a bottled water. But when we are in our own homes, what do? We drink tap water. We think that's good enough. I think she wanted to come in first. Did you?
Yeah, well, I was just saying that, like you said, like we tend to give it reason that, you know, we ate something or we did something. But actually, we know what is actually happening, what is the truth. The water is hard.
But we do nothing about it,
yeah,
right?
but then there are also companies which are coming up with, you know, they're coming up with systems that you can put in the shower, so they're
no, I know, but my point is there should be the norm. What we're talking about are exceptions, right? Like, I've done it at my house, but it's not the norm.
It's a health hazard.
Yeah,
I mean, it sure is, but then what can
But I'm
you
saying
say?
that, you know, this is a very
air quality, right? So you do take the point of air quality, but what about water?
Then
Just
you can
about to say living in Delhi is a health hazard, but we all continue to do that.
But we are making systems to control the air. We are doing
How?
things to
We can't control the air.
Not doing
Anything to
control
control
the
the
air,
air.
purifying the air.
कितना कर सकते हो यार?
वही
मतलब
बात।
in this room we got air purifier. How much can you control?
In fact, my son's doctor is now telling me, आप जो ये पूरा दिन घर में एयर प्योरीफायर लगा के रखते हैं, फिर बच्चा बाहर खेलने जाता है, इसी से बीमार पड़ता है.
Exactly.
His lungs need to get used to the environment that he lives in, and you know, short of moving to Dehradun, we don't know what to do. You know.
No, and the point
You'll find the same thing in Dehradun, to be very honest, because my sister was thinking about doing something like that. But it's you have to think beyond that, beyond moving. So you have to think about fixing the situation, and it's the same with water. You have to think about fixing the situation completely. So it's not just the consumer's responsibility, but it's the responsibility of the people living together as a community that you come together.
It's not like we don't have solutions. Shanghai at one point was the most polluted city in the world, and the government has taken some fantastic initiatives.
It's the community which drives it. So
no,
government takes the decision.
No, it's not.
They can't. But anyway, I think we're getting a bit distracted. I think you wanted to come in.
So I think we started with the fact of commercialization, and I think that's the key factor for me when I talk of sustainability, because however we talk about water, air, all of it needs all of us as founders, but critically as commercial people, to create employments. And I think that is my key responsibility also. And technology should enhance the journey, but should not make it lower, because it is so very important to be able to create an environment of positivity, which is employment, using the right materials, working towards innovation, where all this can be integrated. And especially in fashion, where I say it's very easy to say that it's a very naive thing, but if you look at each one of us, I'm sure we spent at least 10 minutes deciding what we are wearing today. Will it be the right color for the day? Will it be the right material for the day? I'm talking sustainability. Am I wearing it right or not? Now that means it is a significant part. And actually speaking, you're the second largest pollutant in the world. Now what is pollutant is the landfill. Why is the landfill the problem? Because the material we are using has deteriorated because in the name of wanting to consume and consumerism and the price war that we got in, we compromised both on people and the material. If that awareness can be created and without changing the life of a consumer, I don't think it's going to be tough to do it. I think where it's tough to do is if you're expecting a consumer to go out of his way and, you know, make that change or suddenly want to do it. I remember my mom's Tanchoi sarees years and years, and मैं अभी भी पहन लेती हूँ. I feel proud wearing it because they were created in that way and the society was evolved, not judging today you're wearing this and you can't repeat it again.
But you know, I'm going to ask you to just pause for a moment, and I want to get everybody's point of view on how does a person trying to build a business based on sustainability or sustainability at its core on the things that has been put on this table about commercialization, creating enough employment and jobs, is that a focal point? And because it also then means that these businesses have to become very large as well, right, to get enough people in the workforce. Is that a center point of how everyone is thinking about their products and how this will scale, or is the sustainability by itself the most important thing?
I would like to take this question. Just a little prelude. I've had several such discussions ever since the advent of Alter, and you know, we have Dia Mirza, who's one of probably the champions of sustainability. She's our brand ambassador as well. And the conversation every time is how problematic consumers are, how much we need to push this behavior on them, and how it needs to be this, you know, this movement. There's this activist angle to it. It's not normal. It's not fun to be part of these conversations after a point, and I'm being very, very honest here.
And kudos to you for being honest.
So, you know, and as a sustainability entrepreneur,
मजा
नहीं आ रहा यार इतनी बार वही problematic बातें करके. So, at the core of it, very simple. I'm talking about my philosophy. I started a business. I want to make money at the end of the day.
Well done.
You know, I'm not doing 12, 15, 18 hours of hard work so that, you know, I can create some big yarn out of it. That can be a byproduct, but I want to make money. At the same time, ensuring my consumers and customers, which is parents, they get a high value product that does not harm their babies, and that's good for them.
Well done.
That's
for our industry, sustainability was the only option. When you're going after big B2B players and you are making a product which is as deep tech as ours, no one is going to get any investment if they are saying I'll make a diesel genset. No one is going to get any investment if they are saying I'll make a, let's say, ICE engine vehicle. They're going to get investment if you are working on the sustainability.
But now you
angle.
could get it for ICE as well.
ICE
and the whole thing is now again beginning to shift, right, on its axis. Anyway, sorry to continue.
But going back to Surabhi's point, bang on, I joke and tell people, like she said, all the time I'm attending panels and discussions. I'm not Mother Teresa. I don't even look like one. I don't feel like one. With due respect, we need to do this as a business, scale it up, make it viable. Otherwise, it's just going to be a conversation from this table to that table, to one nice panel to another panel. So I think it's very, very important to make any business scalable and grow it with that as a must.
I'd like to get everybody else also to...
Same in hydroponics also, I'll tell you. Like, you know, it is very important to, I mean, it is important, organic is important, but organic is not selling your product in India at least. So it is very important to choose a high value crop, which is giving you, you know, more on investment, which is giving you higher returns. So now, like, people are not only in India, all around globally also, there were many companies like App Harvest, InFarm, which shut down because they were just not making enough money. I mean, hydroponics is sustainable, but in the same place, it also uses high input energy, and then there are high operational costs, there's nutrient circulation, and altogether it takes a lot of money to start a setup. So it's very important to realize that in a country like India, maybe a country like Dubai, there's a company called Botanica. Their whole idea is to grow their salads in-house locally in the country, because most of their produce is coming from outside. So for them, it is very profitable and sustainable. So same in India, it is very important to realize that if you keep on fixating yourself on growing organic, you will not make money out of hydroponics. You need to choose a high value crop. You need to choose something which is traditionally difficult to grow or not available year round. So this is how my vision changed over the years.
Well done.
Yeah, I think in our case, I'll just simply say definitely the numbers are the most important aspect for any kind of a business to grow, whether it's sustainable or not. But apart from that one, what kind of a business model you opt? How you want to reach out to your customers? Like rightly said that we're using any kind of a reward points. With us, we use generally the government policies, considering a net zero water, considering the ESG component or the SDG goals, or we find out that which are the areas where which are the completely under a water stressed areas and there is no water or the polluted water is there. So these are the factors we consider it into our business model to make it more accessible to our, so that we should be available at that point, at that particular location. And second is definitely the price factor. So if it is a combination of your business model, your price, as well as your availability at that particular segment or that particular geographical location. So if it is there, then I think that there is a possibility that we use.
No, but the question was that are you keeping that at your core? As opposed to, I think, being part of panels and doing gyanbazi ki main duniya ko, I'm going to change the world and you guys are all terrible people because you don't keep the environment. Yeah, but the subtext is that, isn't it? It is to gild the others who are not supposedly, caring. Woke enough.
Guilt at scale does not work.
Guilt at any point doesn't work.
Exactly.
I mean, have you ever tried guilting? Parents are guilting their children all the time. None of us listen to our parents. It's a fact.
Can you make financial sense out of that situation is what works every time.
No, so that is therefore my question to this table is that because sustainability is so much about guilt as opposed to is it a business model, and I think you wanted to come in.
When we think of sustainability and sustainability can be a business model, it cannot be a business model if there is no, if you are not maintaining or building your business sustainably. Right. So let's say, for example, when we started building 2Us, even though I got a successful exit from my previous startup, I knew that if I'm building something in sustainability, I cannot go and burn X amount of money in this and, bring a good tech team, bring a operations team and blah, 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 and then burn like crores of rupees in just 1 year and get nothing out of it. Because I knew that building anything in sustainability, the market is emerging, the mindset is emerging as well. And the momentum is kind of on the organization in terms of how they want to cater it to the audience, right? You cannot push sustainability day and night to your consumers because then they'll get bored of it. And then they'll figure out, yaar, mere liye na isme aur kuch nahi hai. Let's look out for new solutions. And that's how what we did was we wanted to build an operation team for our warehouse segregation, sorting and tracing. And we reached out to this Wagri community. There's almost 2 to 3 lakh people living in Delhi in Raghubi Nagar area. That community was the one who used to visit our doorstep every week, every month. They were used to exchange clothes and give you something back, probably a utensil or probably
bartan wala, na?
Exactly,
Oh my God,
bartan wala, right?
I remember
and
that.
The momentum, since we are evolving more towards हमें secure भी रहना है, households भी secure करने हैं, high-rise societies are there. Their access to the households got restricted. We went to them and said, why don't you come to our warehouse, work with us? Will help you set up a kind of a life where you will be able to see some fixed money that you will be getting, and then why don't you become our kind of source? We give them our kind of bosses and we utilize them to kind of market ourselves at an early days when we were just figuring out whether this is a product market fit or not and all those things. And that kind of thinking building a sustainable organization with a sustainable approach is kind of a game changer for anyone who wants to start anything in sustainability, because at the end of the day, you will not be able to make a lot of money in your first 2, 3 or 4 years probably when building a sustainable solution, which is kind of a new category, let's say, for the market. So implementing in that way is kind of a very good approach to build something in sustainability domain.
Yeah, I agree with most of the people on the table that profitability is the primary part of the whole business, right? It doesn't make sense if you don't have a business if it's not making money. But the most important point is that whether your business is a sustainable business or is a business of sustainability, or is it an add-on to your business, right? So if you're making plastic water bottles and like water in it, is sustainability an add-on for you? Or is it water your primary business?
In that
right?
business, you're selling water. You're not selling sustainability.
You're not selling sustainability.
Yeah.
It's an add-on. So your
Yeah.
profitability, you can't start lying to yourself, because that is when the pressure of profitability is there, that is when the brand starts lying about you being sustainable or recycling.
I think, look, are they unfair or bad business practices? 100%.
Of course.
Right? There are enough businesses which do lose their way. I'm talking about traditional businesses which are not built on sustainability. But is it possible to be sustainable without it being a sustainability business is also a possibility, right?
Yeah. I mean,
in the sense, I mean, to go back to your water this thing.
Yeah.
Can people use some other material instead of plastic, and also a particular kind of plastic that is used versus? So again, without taking any brand names, if all of us have been seeing how these bottles for water that is sold now, that plastic is degraded significantly. Now these bottles can't even stand because they've used such a cheap, I think, so that is the problem, right? As opposed to, and I think sometimes, I'm sorry, I'm going to take up a lot of time, but I'll finish my point quickly. So I know you want to say, and you wanted to complete your point, is that I think it's like, I think the larger point is that is all plastic equally bad, or some plastic is more bad than others? And therefore, in some cases, to transport liquids, and especially inflammable liquids, what's the alternative available today, for example, right? So then what do you need to go with? What is also feasible? Because then you're talking about very large supply chains changing. So specifically for liquids or semi-solids, I don't know what the alternate, at a scale level, what is the alternate, right? So again, the point is, are businesses using a much cheaper and a bad quality plastic which is bleaching into or leaking into the consumable versus a higher quality plastic which is still degradable and not, therefore a net bad for the environment? I think those are also questions. I think there are a lot of bad practices that have crept in.
That's where technology comes in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think a ban
and
on
also
them.
ethical mind frame, I think. Because I think, again, good plastic, and really bad plastic
Plastic
exists.
is bad, like general.
Yeah.
No, but
glass
ask
is
me,
even worse than plastic, if you look at it.
No, but here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. But if you want to transport, let's say juice, how are you going to do it? Now the thing, water or anything that's liquid, how are you going to do it? Is there a sustainable alternative at a certain price point?
I think exactly why did polyester come up? Now there was a reason it came up. One point was price, the other was convenience. You could just put it for washing, pull it out.
Basically, washing machines led to polyester being more mainstream.
What happened was because of the price war, the quality of the polyester just kept going lower, lower, lower. It is not that polyester is the root cause or anything. It's when the value and proportion to the money and the whole chain changed that it happened. So I think ethical part of it is also a very important
It's
thing.
necessary, I would say.
It's
a
fun to talk
balance.
about ethics when you're sitting in a board meeting and let's say I am the production head or whatever, and my CEO tells me cut the costs. What do you do? At that
You follow the board. You follow the board.
What do you do? In our industry, I just want to finish. We do a personal hygiene product. It's virtually impossible to pack it in anything other than plastic because, sorry, if I send it in anything else and you had a baby, you would not be touching that with a 10-foot pole, So we can't do. But what we have done is kind of partnered with agencies who recycle an equal amount of plastic back. So in some way, we're telling our customers that, okay, we are generating a certain amount of plastic waste, but we are also recycling an equal amount back. So I don't think there's like a 100% clean answer to this. The solution always lies somewhere in between.
It's yet to be figured out, right? So when
Yeah,
you're
it's a work
saying
in
that
progress,
you use
yes.
plastic, but
Yes.
then you like partnered with an agency which recycles plastic.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's a mechanism where we work in. That's carbon offsets, right? So
Right.
you create emissions, then you offset those emissions, and we are the class monitors. We look at that whether have you done that or not, or whether the plastic has been recycled or not.
Right.
So that's where we come in. So these are the companies where it's required to have certain vehicles in that element, right? So it's not alone you can do that. It's multiple people.
Without taking the name of this world leader, what does everyone feel about paper straws? We will not name politicians in this program, but quickly, because we have to get into the next segment. So what does everybody feel about paper straws versus?
I hate it.
Honest answer.
Functionality as functionality, they suck.
Good initiative, needs more work, will grow.
So I also feel it's a good initiative.
You should go for paper straw. You're for paper straws.
Yeah, no, not basically a paper toilet and all those
No,
things.
paper
but-
straws.
paper straws and all those things. So I'll say that I'll go with that one also.
Okay.
I have a very bad experience with straws. So apparently I made a LinkedIn post in regards to the waste that is being generated over straws, and boom, it got banned by, it got a kind of an hit from the brand that you're not naming actually. And then I kind of went into a little bit of fight with them over email, and apparently it got kind of that much of reach over LinkedIn that a lot of people started hating me. But apparently, yes, if the straw, there's a lot of waste being generated with straws, but yes, alternatives are equally welcome or should be the case. And what I feel that is, there's a lot of organizations that are currently working towards paper straw, but the quality degrades after a certain period of time. Let's say, even if you're watching a movie, at movie, you take a Pepsi they'll give you a large Pepsi, the straw will,
Disintegrate before you're halfway through.
Exactly.
Okay, quick.
I think it's work in progress. It needs to more miles to go before we can make the change. What we need to pay careful is the straws which are existingly using are well produced. So it's not about, again, it comes down to what you said. It's about the material. Let's focus on material. Make those straws well, which are there, and let these come up as work in progress, because alternatives can only happen if they're a good substitute.
Yeah.
They do not happen otherwise.
Your view on paper straws.
Paper straw is something that will not go far because people are actually...
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively, because there are companies who are trying to experiment with plant fiber. So there's hemp fiber that you have, there's bamboo fiber that you have. So there are multiple plant fibers that you have that you can alternate paper and plastic with. So that is something that I am looking forward to.
It's not about paper straws, it's about plastic straws replacement.
No. I mean, it's about paper straws. So you've not followed the latest news. So like I said, there's a world leader who's saying no paper straws, they're terrible. Yeah. Okay, guys, now we are going to get into the segment where all of you can ask me questions. So whoever has questions, feel free. I'll try and answer it to the best of my abilities.
So I'll pick one of the kind of an statement of yours where you were explaining about or questioning about, if a brand is non-sustainable, how they can be sustainable. Let's say, what's your thought on that? Like, what do you feel how that approach can happen?
If a brand is not sustainable,
Let's
as
say-
in from the business standpoint?
From
or?
business standpoint, let's say.
No. So I think again, this is not well understood in India, because risk capital is a fairly recent sort of capital that is available to startup. So the whole point of risk capital is that it backs an idea or a founder where the investor thinks that there's a big opportunity, right? Now, in all big opportunities, ultimately it's a function of land grab. Ultimately, because you will have competition coming up. You don't want that competition to come up and gather enough steam, and which means capital as well, where then it becomes like a market war, because then that'll bleed you even far more actually, right? But at the core, it has to be that is the unit economic sustainable, which means that your COGS, like if your COGS are going to be 70%, then you might as well not even bother, right? A lot of founders mistake burn as a free pass to do anything. It is actually meant where, let's say, there is an MVP of the product, which to some extent means that the pricing is understood, The COGS is, so COG optimization you'll have only a lever of 10 to 15% at scale, right? So if your COGS are at 40% and you can take it down to 30, but if it's at 70%, you can't take it ever down to 30, right? So therefore, be in those product categories where the COGS can be optimized, but you can't start with a very high COG. That you can never sort of, regain from. The second thing is, how do you acquire the customer and how frequently the customer engages with you? Now, even when there is behavior change, so like mobiles is a good example of behavior change. But they have inbuilt obsolescence in a way that despite a very high ticket price, all of us are up for changing our phones every year and a half, 2 years now, which was unheard of for any hardware. I mean, forget in India, I think in most parts of the world, I mean, how often did people, So you've got to think about it from all of those levers, because a large company is only built when the same customer comes multiple times in a year and you are able to sell a high gross margin product repeatedly. So if you're not able to think of that, the burn is a part of land grab. The burn cannot be to say that, acha, let me figure out ki ye product kaise banega. That, yeah, because then you're very, very far from reaching. So that's what I meant by sustainability.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your opinion, where is sustainability today coming out of? Is it coming from the big brands, the Fortune 500, or is it coming from the startups like ours?
Look, everything that's new will come from startups. Large companies often are incentivized not to change their ways of doing things, right? So like in the US, if you see how big companies are incentivized by the counties and the states. So states have their own programs to attract, let's say, manufacturing, production into a certain sort of area. So there are a lot of incentives that are given to large companies. So they also do have to work then within that framework, right? So breaking that framework is much tougher, which is why innovation comes from startups. So to my mind, everything, whether it's sustainability at its core, whether it's a completely new product, new category, new channel, or even a new sort of class of consumers that you're bringing into your fold, all that is always done by startups. It's never done by legacy companies. You had a question.
Just drawing from the gross margin point that you had, where you said large companies are built over companies that have good gross margins. What do you think, ballpark is a healthy gross margin for a consumer?
So if you're an online first company, unfortunately, if you have anything less than 70%, it can make it very, very difficult to scale it because of the way you access the consumer. And to establish LTV takes a really long time. I mean, a lot of companies will say, a lot of startups do say that, oh, we looked at this is the cohort we are looking at. Every time I ask them, how do you calculate LTV? And I get varying answers. Somebody calculates this on 6 months basis, somebody calculate it on a yearly basis. But the truth about LTV is, at least this is how I think about LTV, is how we all behave as consumers, right? Like I said, if I bought an Apple iPhone, first of all, they're making sure that I make another very high ticket purchase within a year and a half, 2 years, which is actually would not have been a natural span of LTV for a hardware like a mobile phone. Like these phones should be meant to last much longer, right? But then they're able to upsell so many other products, again, with high gross margin to me and high value both, which is pure genius, right? Because they're not compromising. So a lot of startups will say, oh, all the other things I upsell, that's fine. Something will be high gross margin, but the core product could be low. That doesn't work. At a unit level, at a product level, therefore, you have to be very mindful of the gross margin. But having said that, at the starting point, you can start at 60% or 55%, but anything less than that is ruinous. You will burn a lot of money because you have to hold inventory as well, right?
Yeah, I just like to ask one more thing. We generally go to the investors to look for the funds. But if I'll say personally that I don't want to go for a fund, I just need their network or their mentoring. So I'll say that we don't invest into our company. So how can we just approach them to get their network open up for us?
So think about it like this, right? I mean, what is a network worth if there is not a a sort of, coming together of interests, right? Everybody has A plus network, B plus network, and C minus networks. So let's say an investor has all these what do you think you will get introduced to? I mean, will any investor expose the A plus network? Who will he or she expose that A plus network to?
No, ultimately it's just giving something. It's just both give and take.
What is the give and take here?
For investors, this comes out to be in the form of equity only, the shareholding factor. So I'll say that
First of all, that's not legal in India. I mean, nobody can hold equity free of cost, first of all. So there is no way that, and no investor should be doing it because, again, you've got to follow the law of the land. That's number one. Number two is, again, think about it, right? Let's say if I have equity in, most of my portfolio, I have 18 to 20%, which is typically what a lot of investors want with their first check into a company. And let's say because you don't want to take money, you're giving, let's say, 5% or 2%. Again, who will I expose my A plus network to? It's a logical answer already, right? So think about this completely from a business. It's not charity. See, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what a VC does. It's not charity. It's not an entitlement also. So then what's the give and take here? The give and take will be that wherever my interests are the most aligned as an investor, that's where I will put in most of my effort. I think it's very simple. Similarly, like you will give the most ESOP to your best performing employees, right? And the employee who's been with you the longest. It's the same thing. It's the same equation, really.
So big institutions right now, when they're investing into corporations or conglomerates, they look at the impact that they are creating on climate and what the climate is doing to their products and the future of their products, right?
Which big investors are we talking about here?
So we're talking about giants, right? So if there's banks, institutions, those kind of people, they look at these kind of things, right? So there's TCFD reports that they have to follow. And you as an investor, when you are looking at a company, do you have a similar thought process when you're looking at something like that, whether that product...
So yes and no. Yes and no. See, if you look at least if I talk about our portfolio at Rukam, when a startup is trying to build a new product, right, what does a startup do? It tries to do better in everything they do, right? So better channel, better gross margin, better way of doing, because like I said, the legacy guys are incentivized to continue the behavior that they've been doing, right? So automatically, typically a company, a startup, starts from an idealistic position, no matter who the startup and which category it is. Very rarely have I come across a startup, at least in India, where from day one they'll say, "हाँ कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, यमुना में जाके सारा गंद फेंक के आ जाओ." I mean, most founders hopefully are idealistic, right? You want to do better. Now the thing that we are very cognizant of is that a very early stage company, given our sort of framework that all the compliances that a small company has to do in India, can we burden a small company with even more compliances? And I think one needs to be, again, sensitive about that, because then you're almost killing it before the company can take off. But it doesn't mean that you condone bad behavior or environmentally polluting behavior. But then there are certain aspects that you also have to, like, let's say, because they are doing contract manufacturing and the contract manufacturer is whoever it is, but if that's the only choice you have for contract manufacturing, what do? You can't change the behavior of the contract manufacturer because you're too small, right? So I think it's important to balance business sense, especially for a very small business. And unfortunately, with a lot of regulation, whether it's mandatory or it's nice to have, is often very onerous and doesn't take into, in fact, it is counterproductive to the small business. So again, a lot of these, how do you tabulate ESG or SDG is done keeping in mind the large corporations who can afford very easily. Unke liye it's not even 0.1% of the overall, let's say, expense. But for a small company, if the founder gets caught into that mire of that reporting, for that company, you're going to shave away, to my mind, the best years of its existence. So it's also a little bit about understanding what a small startup is. On that note, I have to close this. It's been a very enriching conversation. I'm glad you were all honest and forthright in your opinions, and it was great to have all of you. And this is the close of another episode of Startup Table with AJ. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.